I'll give you some sort of description. If I just tag it there, if I just stick a pin in there, you might be like, oh, do you want spinal cord, or maybe medulla oblongata, or if I tag it there, I'll have to, well, let you know. So if I say the opening, right there, then you'll know that I'm looking for central canal. If I just tag it there and say what's this whole part, that could be spinal cord. Now we have the meninges. First one's the dura. If you have something with this on it, that's the tough mother. Dura, mater. Mater, right there. That's that tough outer covering. We're not doing that. So the pia, what we're using, if I take a little film off of this and just say tissue layer, or I wouldn't say meningeal layer because I'd give it away too much. So if I go a real superficial layer, we're going to use that as our pia. Next, we'll go medulla oblongata. I'll show you from a half brain and a whole brain view. So the medulla oblongata is right here. That's the whole brain. Half brain view, it's approximately here. Medulla oblongata. Yeah, we're moving up. We'll go to pons. Pons will be here. So with medulla oblongata, we have pons. There's a couple good anatomical landmarks, anatomical features that'll give it away. This is your cranial nerve 6. That's your abducent cranial nerve. That's going to be in between your medulla and your pons. So you see cranial nerve 6, you know everything below that. Well, until you reach to the spinal cord. You'll know that's medulla, and you'll know that's pons. That thing right there, that little worm, little thread, that's cranial nerve 6, your abducent. There'll be, that's the left one. There should be one over here on the right. Well, right there. There's the right abducent. Now we're going midbrain, the cerebral peduncles. So that, I'm going to just kind of, you're looking at like an anterolateral view. This is going to be your peduncle. So there's your cerebral peduncle. It's kind of pulled away here. It's not the best view. There, if I glue that back together. That's your cerebral peduncle. Now we get the backside. So we have our cerebrum, our cerebellum, our transverse fissure. Now we open it, go from a backside view, start pulling that down, and we run into our corpora quadragema. So our corpora quadragema is made up of our 2 superior colliculi and our 2 inferior colliculi. So there's your superior colliculi, and then your pineal gland. And then you can see this arbor vitae. It's that tree-looking thing. Tree of life. Next part here, this is going, not a lot of space in here. So we went from our spinal cord to our medulla oblongata, heading up our brainstem, going to our pons. We did our midbrain and the corpora quadragema, the superior and inferior colliculi on our midbrain. Just showed you the cerebellum. Now we're continuing up to the diencephalon. So from a mid-sagittal section, or view, this area through here is going to be our diencephalon. Now, quiz time, I'll have to give you some sort of a description. If I just tag it here, you could say, if I say main region, that would be diencephalon. If I tag it here and say specific part of this region, this is going to be your thalamic portion. Your pineal gland from a mid-sagittal section, if you have it, that's just a little nub of it. But that pineal gland, I just showed you the previous view. So you go from the back, rip that apart a little bit, and there's your pineal gland. Hypothalamic portion, that's the lower part. You can actually see that from an external view, the hypothalamic portion of your diencephalon. All right, just tag it down here. Mammillary body. So from an external view, it's approximately here. So you can see this a portion of this optic nerve, or optic chiasm. You go posterior to that. This is your oculomotor cranial nerve, or your left one. The right one should be there. So how is posterior to your optic chiasm, but anterior to your oculomotor cranial nerve 3? That's going to be your mammillary body. And ideally, it's going to be a little bit raised, kind of have a hole in the middle. Nubs here of your optic nerve move posterior. See a portion of your trigeminal. Then you got that nugget. Where's my nugget? Right there. Get that. I'm going to turn this over, and it's all within that tough structure. Well, anyway, that's your pituitary gland. All this is cerebrum. We have our longitudinal cerebral fissure. We'll have our transverse fissure. Transverse fissure. Cingulate gyrus. You're looking from a mid-sagittal section. Well, before I do cingulate, let's do corpus callosum. See that thing right there? That's corpus. This is corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. You go above that, that's going to be your cingulate gyrus. Septum pellucidum. Now, septum pellucidum, that's going to be the membrane separating your lateral ventricles. Some of these, depending on how they were sliced, you will still see it. Not this one. So you can see the space good here. If there was a membrane covering this area through here, that would be your septum pellucidum. So lateral ventricle, I'd have to pin it in this space and then again give some sort of description. Because lateral ventricles are going to be a little bit, well, they're going to be lateral, right? And then your lateral ventricles eventually run to your third ventricle, correct? So, well, we don't have third ventricle on there, so that makes it easier. Don't worry about the third ventricle. You can see this though, going from your third, see that depression right there? That's going to be your cerebral aqueduct. Your cerebral aqueduct is going to run down and then go to your fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle. We know fourth ventricle is anterior to our cerebellum, posterior to that brainstem. So that's our fourth ventricle in there. And then if I tag something there and it looks like it's in a groove, then that would be the cerebral aqueduct. What else might you think it is if I tag it there? What part of the brainstem? Big gulp, cerebral peduncle, yep. That I'll tag over here. Or you can say, oh man, you just want the main region, that midbrain. But if I want the main region, I'll tag it there and I'll say one of the 6 main regions. I'll give descriptions. And then if my descriptions are working for you, just ask me. Lateral ventricle, cerebral aqueduct, fourth ventricle. Yeah, baby. Right there. That is your choroid plexus. It's prescription like, oh, this makes cerebral spinal fluid in the ventricles, and then choroid plexus. I'll push a description. It'll be good. If you're looking at an inferior view of the brain, you're going to see it. May see a dark color, the old blood. You'll see this single line coming down through, and then it'll branch off. That single line is the basilar, and then the vertebral feed into that. So it goes vertebral into basilar. Oh, cranial nerve 1, olfactory, optic. This is your right oculomotor. There's trochlear. Coming back, trigeminal. Then your abducen. There's your abducen. Now we can also see that dark line? That's the basilar artery. And then branching off of it, nicely branched, that's going to be your vertebral. Basilar, then the vertebral. So if it's any of these two branches, or if it's not the one in the middle, it's a branch off the side, and I say vessel, that'll be the vertebral. There's, optic chiasm. Optic chiasm. But what I gotta do now, I'll cut that stuff away and pretty it up a little bit. Woohoo! How about I go to 6 next? We saw abducen already. See that little line right there? That's your abducen. Right under there. So I should be ripping it off any second.